Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melia. I am up here today at Immortals with Mikey.
What is up, John? And it seems like we're talking about something mighty tonight.
We are talking about a Supers game, and let me tell you, this talk has been a long time coming because Carlos got these books in a while ago, like probably over a year ago.
Okay.
And I did the write-up for it, was all set to talk about it. And the blessed thing sold out before we had time to record it. So we've had a whole bunch of source books for this game line sitting on the shelf, and we still do. But we haven't had the core books. We finally were able to get them back in stock. So the game we're going to talk about today is Masks: A New Generation. This is from Magpie Games. And this is a superhero game, which, you know, I'm always saying we need more supers games.
Yeah, we do.
And this is a pretty cool one. It came out in 2016. There was a Kickstarter for it in 2015. Brendan Conway is the creator behind it, and it uses the Powered by the Apocalypse game system. I know we've talked about that a couple of times before.
The Apocalypse game system?
The Powered by the Apocalypse game system.
Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's originally started out as a dungeon crawling type game and then has been used for a lot of other things. Masks, I believe, was the first superhero game to use the Apocalypse system. And this one is very explicitly for teen supers. Do you ever watch any or read any stuff about teen supers? I mean, you got Spider-Man.
I've watched,
of course, right?
Spider-Man, got into Invincible a little bit.
Invincible's absolutely spot on for this. Young Justice is usually the archetypical DC one that's a great cartoon series and comic series.
That
Teen Titans was also a great one. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah, Teen Titans.
And so those are very much in the vein of the types of settings and types of adventures that Masks: A New Generation is intended to replicate. So the setting that comes with this is Halcyon City, city of 10 million people. So that is a large town, right?
I mean, it's pretty large.
That's bigger than Cleveland. So
yeah.
I mean, that's where we set our bar here.
Yeah, humbly, right?
Right. And it is the premier superhero city in this setting. They've had heroes active there since the 1930s. And they do have a premier Avengers Justice League style grown-up team that's there called IGUS.
IGUS?
Yes.
Is that an acronym?
I'm sure it is. Ask me what it stands for. I have no idea, but I'm sure it's in the book. And there have been supers, again, going back to the 1930s. So you've got your golden age of supers, your bronze age of supers, your silver age of supers, even your iron age of supers, and then you have your modern supers, right? And that's who these teens are. They're representative of modern characters. They're teens today. And because this is a Powered by the Apocalypse game system, you're going to be playing to find out. You're playing to tell the stories behind these teen supers. You do get several pages about that setting, but the important part is that it's just a setting. It's a jumping off point. Your characters are going to develop the story from here moving forward. Now, a neat thing about this rules set here, the way it's presented, they present it as a conversation. So you're watching people carry on a conversation and explain the game system in front of you. So you kind of feel like you're part of the story, that you're participating in a conversation as they're revealing it. And they have framing scenes set up in that conversation so that you can kind of skip through the conversation to get to the fun parts, right? Get to where the action is. And it talks about the Powered by the Apocalypse moves and uses them as a start for narrative actions. You also want to point out that the rules are basically there to resolve things only when you don't know what's going to happen. So if people are just interacting and the story's clearly driving someplace, you don't need to use the rules, right? You can just tell that story as it's going. But when you don't know what's going to happen, that's when the dice come out. That's when you make a check. And it's only the players that are ever going to roll dice. The game master isn't involved in that. So when you're developing a character, Powered by the Apocalypse uses playbooks, right? And there are 10 playbooks that are described here. They are available from Magpie's website. There are, of course, some other limited scope ones and a ton of fan-generated playbooks as well. But you get 10 here. And there's powers that are described here as well. And they're kind of open to different interpretations. So if you want those powers to work a little bit differently, that's very manageable. And these playbooks are very heavily focused on role-play elements, much more so than they are set up to define what specific powers you have. So, you know, your character's going to be more focused on telling a story than representing exactly what particular superpower they have or how that power manifests. That's kind of, ancillary to the story that they're telling. And those playbooks are described in detail in Chapter 5, and they are, again, all available as a free download from Magpie's site so that you can print them up as your players need them. Going through the other chapters, Chapter 4 is the moves one, and that spells out each of the standard moves and how they relate to the game system for masks, specifically talking about invoking and rolling the dice for those. Chapter 6 gets into advancements, and I really like the way this is framed because this is a teen super story, right? So these are kids that are growing up. They're developing. They're having their high school experiences. They're having, that archetypical growing up adventure. They're maturing into the person that they're going to become, the superhero that, might transform the world. And so as your characters advance, that becomes a part of that story. The moves that they have can change. They might, develop their powers in new directions, and they can grow in unexpected ways and maybe even become locked in on specific aspects that become defining elements of their characters. Once they grow up or once they achieve their ultimate status, maybe they retire or maybe they become a paragon. So they're one of the defining aspects of your setting. And then that can be used to describe future stories with other characters where, this former player character is now a big important NPC to the setting and has transformed it and has a, archetypical role within your version of Halcyon City.
That's actually cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. Chapter 7, 8, and 9 are focused on Game Master advice, both talking about the setting, but also talking about the system and how you might want to tweak it to really reflect the type of stories that you want to tell and how you might want to utilize the elements that are there in different ways, again, to drive forward the kinds of stories you want to tell. Chapter 10 is a section on custom moves. So again, ways to modify the game system and to really help you use those modifications to drive the story forward. This is not generally a game system that's going to be super realistic. That's kind of the nature of Powered by the Apocalypse. Instead, it's going to be a game system that drives a story. And that's exactly what's happening here. You're telling the stories of teenagers who happen to have superpowers and are growing up. Like any good comic book, there are certain to be some soap opera-ish elements where you're having things happen because of the relationships the characters have. And those relationships can be a part of their superhero identity, but they don't have to be, right? Because most of these characters do have an additional life outside of being a super, probably since they're high schoolers, as students, either in high school or maybe in college. And that can be another big part of your narrative, and having those different aspects of their personality complement one another, as we've seen, in the existing media, in the Spider-Man stories, when he has to interact with somebody he knows in both identities. In
Spider-Menace.
Absolutely. So we do have some copies of this on the shelf. This is Masks: A New Generation from Magpie Games. It's about 200 pages. It is full color. It is a paperback, and it is $30. And then, like I said, we do have a few supporting books for it as well on the shelves up here at Immortals Inc. Stop in and take a look.
Well said, John. And check out the link below, as you could check on immortalsinc.com. And have a good one, guys.
Till next time, folks. Good gaming.